The Prime Minister's critics wanted him out because they're hostile to Brexit. Rees-Mogg made these comments after fellow Tory MP Tobias Ellwood had said that the UK should rejoin the single market to ease the cost of living crisis. Sir Keir Starmer said earlier this week that any future Labour government wouldn't join the single market or a customs union, so Brexit will never be overturned. Will it? To debate this, I'm joined now by Anna Bird. She's the CEO of European Movement UK, who have previously set up a crowdfunder with the hope of reversing Brexit, and Neil Hamilton, who's the leader of UKIP and is a former Conservative MP. Thank you both ever so much for joining me tonight. I want to come to you first, Anna, if you don't mind. So you've set up the crowdfunder. What is it that you hope or that you feel that you could achieve once you've raised sufficient funds?
Well, our campaign is all about reversing the calamities of Brexit. The reality is that Boris Johnson's legacy is a Brexit that is extremely damaging. We know that over the next few years, families are going to be facing a hit to their pocket of £1,000 a year because of Brexit. That economic reality is not told in Boris Johnson's story, but it is the reality of a hard Brexit, a Brexit that has been set up on lies and deceit. So what we want to do is to tell a new story, I think, to open negotiations, to start conversations about what a much more positive relationship with the European Union could look like. We need to do that because we're facing a serious cost of living crisis. We can't afford to be risking a trade war. We can't afford to not be trading with our nearest neighbours.
Let me just be clear, Anna, though. Are you lobbying for another referendum about rejoining the EU? Or are you saying that Parliament should just arbitrarily take us back in?
No, that's not what we're arguing for at all. Right now, we're facing a cost of living crisis. We need to have conversations about how we could open up a new thinking about the Brexit we have to improve on the deal that we've got. We're not in a position to hold a new referendum. There are millions of people up and down the country who think like me that we would be better off in the European Union, but that's not the conversation we're having right now. The conversation we're having right now is how can we, out of the European Union, have a better relationship, a trading relationship, better relationship across kind of science, cultural ties, etc., that can improve things for people up and down the country who are really feeling the squeeze right now.
Neil Hamilton, is it the case that Brexit has been this major disaster and that we must get back in to the EU as soon as possible to remedy that?
Well, I'm afraid what we've just listened to is another case of Brexit derangement syndrome. It's completely different from the reality. The cost of living crisis is a consequence of having closed down the country for 2 years during COVID and the monetary incontinence of the Bank of England, which has produced 11% inflation. It's nothing whatever to do with Brexit. But one of the great disappointments of Boris Johnson is that having got us over the line in strict legal form on Brexit, he's done absolutely nothing to take advantage of the freedoms which that has given us. We've done nothing, not even get rid of the 5% VAT on fuel, which was mandated by the EU, which we could easily have done, which would have been a considerable help to many people who are currently struggling to pay their fuel bills. We've done virtually nothing to disentangle us from the massive EU regulation, not least in areas of financial services, which aren't covered, of course, by our agreements with the EU anyway. There's no prospect whatsoever of doing any deals with the EU because for them, Brexit is something which has got to be punished because the British people have had the temerity to want to govern themselves and to elect the people who take the decisions upon which our laws are made. So what we need to do from now with the new leader of the Tory party in prospect is to reinvigorate Brexit by taking advantage of those freedoms to cut the cost of government, cut the costs of regulation to business, to open up new markets in other parts of the world, and as far as Northern Ireland is concerned, to tell the EU to go to hell if they're not prepared to be sensible and to get rid of the border down the middle of the Irish Sea. That's got to be a problem for the Irish Republic more than for Britain.